Guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. Arsenal play again tomorrow in the Champions League against Athletic Club, Athletic Bilbao, whatever you want to call them. So we're gonna have to smush these two kind of like things together, kind of wrapping up things around Nottingham Forest, and then starting to move into what are we going to do against Bilbao, because after Bilbao is Manchester City at home. And so, yeah, there might be some decisions to be made, some resting that needs to happen. So I'll give you guys my lineup that I think Arteta might do, or kind of like what I would do in order to set us up nicely for Manchester City. So like I said, make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel and getting into the chat. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see there's a QR code here. That QR code is just if you want to support the channel. There's plenty of ways to support the channel. There's free 99 ways, and just liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And then also, if you guys want to buy me a coffee, that QR code will send you over to the Buy Me a Coffee like page, and then you guys can send in whatever you'd like. You guys know I'm addicted to it, so if you guys want to help out the channel, you can. But even if you don't want to spend any money, there's no problem with that either. Just like and subscribe so we can get this video and this channel growing for sure. So yeah, I do want to go through some of the things that we learned about Arsenal in the game against Nottingham Forest, because I've done a rewatch. I'm not gonna lie, I've done 2 rewatches. I've watched all of the content. I've watched like everything, all of the breakdowns. And I think this was probably the most interesting game that we've played in a long time, because there were so many different players involved. There were goals scored. It was just a lot. So I'd come up with a couple of things that I learned, or what I feel like I learned in that game. And I'd also love to know what you guys think as well. And I would love to hear that in the chat. But let me go ahead and read some of your guys' comments. Lemon says, hello. Hello to you as well. Zachary says, happy Monday, all. Let's keep the momentum and first touch passing going. Jess, how you feeling about Walty moving on? Flowers are due. Yeah, I think Walty, I think it was perfect timing for her to go. I think Cooney crosses the future, and Little is definitely like the number one option. So I feel like it's okay that she moved on. I am a little concerned that Renee has not used Cooney Cross at all so far this season. You know, we won games by multiple goals, and there's been a lot of rotation, and she is not being used yet. So I am a little bit concerned about that. But in terms of Walty, I think it's the perfect time for her to move on, and I wish her the best of luck at Juventus. Josh says you got Eze shirt. This is not an Eze shirt. My Eze shirt is on the way. This is a Timber shirt from last season. Hugo says, big up, Jess. Hope you're doing good. I am doing good. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Good performance. Hope Arteta gives Dowman minutes tomorrow. Smash the likes up, people. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel for sure. Jay says, can't wait to see Manu lose again to Chelsea this weekend. The ship is almost fully underwater. Won't get into it too much on today's show, because obviously we're talking about Arsenal, but it's not looking good for the old Amarim, is it? And Josh says we desperately need to move Manu on, or Manu, I think you're talking about, the goalkeeper. Chola says, hi, Jess, how are you? I'm great, and I hope you're doing well, too. Metex says, my Eze shirt is taking forever, Jess. So is mine, but I kind of, expected it to, because everybody was ordering their shirt. So I'm not really that surprised. And Lemon says, United, man. So let's go ahead and get into it, because unlike Man United, we were not on the wrong end of a 3-0 scoreline. We were on the right side of a 3-0 scoreline. And like I said, rewatching the game multiple times, I was moved by that performance. I was moved. I think obviously in the heat of the moment when you're watching the game, you miss things because you're just like, just go ahead and get the first goal. But from minute 1, you could sense that there was like a difference in Arsenal's play. And there's just so much to take from it. So the first thing that I feel like I learned from the game against Nottingham Forest is that Arsenal have the best depth in the Premier League. Nobody's messing with our depth. Nobody has the same depth as us. Our depth is the best in the league. And if you had told me in 2022 or 2023 or 2024 that I would be saying these words in 2025, I would laugh at you, because one of the major things that Arsenal have suffered from over the last couple of seasons is having a really good first 11, first 12, first 13. And once you get beyond that, it's looking a little sketchy. And that's not to say that we haven't had good players that have been good depth at times, like Trossard in particular, but there has been a sense that if certain players are missing, Arsenal are almost guaranteed to drop points. And having players like Saka and Saliba and Odegaard going off and Rice not starting, and these are major players that played a major role in Arsenal's 89-point season, which I think most would consider our best season under Mikel Arteta. Those players were not in that game. Also Kai Havertz as well. He's been missing for a while now, but it was just unfathomable that Arsenal would be able to maintain a certain level with certain players out. This depth that Arsenal have accrued over this summer has been very impressive. And maybe it didn't feel as impressive during preseason and after the Liverpool game, but against Nottingham Forest, that was the major takeaway for me. That depth is crazy. Mosquera, I cannot get over how good he is. It's not just, oh, he stepped in for Saliba and looked okay. No, he was outstanding. He's the real deal. And for the amount that we paid, when you look at Manchester City, I think they spent 34 million on Kuzanov or whatever his name is. Listen, it's a steal. We got Mosquera for like 13 million or some nonsense like that. The amount of money that Man United spent on Lenny Yoro, and I do believe that Lenny Yoro is a special player, but Mosquera looks just as good, if not better, than the two of those players, and we spent a fraction of the amount on that player. What really impresses me about Mosquera is not just his ability, his defensive ability. That's there. He is the closest thing that you could get to Saliba and Gabriel in terms of the defensive stability that he brings to the back line. But in the game against Nottingham Forest, I don't know if you guys have done a rewatch or anything like that, but the amount of times that he punched that ball forward in between the lines to Ethan and Gyökeres and our attackers, yeah, yeah. It's not just the ability to defend, it's the ability on the ball as well. And somebody was saying like, "Oh, Mosquera looks just like Gabriel when he first came in." No, he doesn't. Gabriel was incredibly raw when he came to Arsenal. He's obviously like a world-class defender now and probably Arteta's biggest success story, 100%. But if you look at what Gabriel looked like at 22 years old coming into Arsenal and you compare that to what we have in Mosquera, he's way ahead of where Gabriel was. And again, that's not to say anything bad about Gabriel, but it's just levels. Like it's literally just levels. He's so good. And he also has the benefit of coming into a better defensive structure. I recognize that as well. Gabriel, he suffered for sure. But Mosquera looks like the real deal, guys. They're like, oh, he reminds me of Rudiger. He reminds me of this. I'm like, yes, but no. Like, he has his own thing going on, because Rudiger's not particularly great on the ball. But it's almost like Rudiger plus Varane plus Gabriel plus, he has a lot going on. And so I'm really excited to see what he brings moving forward, because if we can allow Saliba to rest, and not feel like we need to rush him back, that's going to give us longevity in the competitions that we're in. It's going to give us the ability to go further in these competitions and have our best 11 hopefully available for the big games. And even if they're not, we'll feel confident, right? So yeah, he's probably the first person that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, Mosquera is just special, and he's just one of the players that have brought our depth up a level, and we'll talk about the rest of them. But I just want to speak on Mosquera first, especially for the people yesterday or the day before that were like, Jessica, you not talked about Mosquera. And I talked about him at the beginning of the show, but they had missed it. So I just want to make sure that I talked about him again, because he's probably been the most impressive signing so far, in my opinion. Mosquera can carry it forward before passing it as well. He's shown tackling in the box that's a high level. There was a moment where, excuse me, I keep having to do this to my face because I have like dog hair on me or something. But there was a moment, probably the only moment that it looked like we could potentially concede, where it was like kind of like a weird moment, I think, but like communication moment between Timber and Mosquera, and Timber like tripped over his own feet or something like that. It was just bad communication. And the last ditch tackle from Mosquera, it's just giving Saliba Gabriel esque vibe. You know, he definitely has confidence and a presence about him. And the one thing about, like I said this the 2 days ago, and I'll say it again, is it wasn't so much that Kivior was like a bad player or anything like that. You guys know I rate Kivior, and I wish he would have been able to show some of his brighter qualities more often and he would have been used more. But one of the things about Kivior that made us maybe a little bit weaker or felt weaker wasn't just that he wasn't as good of a player as Gabriel and Saliba, but he didn't have presence. Kivior did not have presence. When Saliba and Gabriel play, you know they're there. The center forwards, they know they're in for a tough day, you know? And so even when Kivior was playing well, there was still an element that a certain type of center forward could get at him. But I feel like Mosquera would be just fine if he had to start against Manchester City in, this weekend. I wouldn't be scared for him to have to go up against Holland. Where with Kivior, at times I was like, if he has to play against the Matetas and the Hollands and players like that, I think he could be got at, So yeah, Mosquera is definitely that guy for sure. Lemon says he looks comfortable with the ball. Not gonna lie, I think he got the most ball passes versus Forrest. He looked so good on the ball. Let's see. We're gonna talk about Nani as well, so we're just gonna go line by line. Sai says, props to the scouting on Mosquera. Some big clubs started inquiring after our first bid went in. Mosquera for 13 million needs to be investigated for theft. Yeah, if I was Valencia, I'd be pissed. I'm not gonna lie, because if they had been able to renew his contract and then sell him in a couple of years, they would have been able to sell him for like 50, 60, maybe even more, the way that center backs are going in the market these days. So yeah, you think about the teams that need players like this, like Liverpool, they could have replaced Konate with Mosquera instead of going for a more expensive option in Mark Gahey. So yeah, that's the levels we're talking about here. Mosquera is if Salima and Gabrielle had a baby, like Superboy was made of Superman and Lex DNA. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So yeah, Mosquera to me is a part of that depth, conversation, and what has brought Arsenal to the point where they have the best depth in the league. I want to speak about Nani as well, a player that on my match reaction, there were quite a few comments of people after the show saying, but you need to apologize, but you need to apologize, but you need to apologize. I'm gonna need you guys to actually watch the show before you guys actually comment, because that was like pretty much like the first or the second thing that I did, was not necessarily apologize, but just say I was wrong about Madueke, that he's more than good enough to be a sufficient backup for Bukayo Saka. But if you need to hear it again because you're stuck, there, I was wrong about Madueke. He's more than good enough to back up Saka. Write it down, take a picture. I said it. Now, with Madueke, he was my man of the match against Nottingham Forest. he just has such a great unpredictability about him. I think that's the one thing that I really took away from his performance was that where Saka has that inevitability of knowing what he's going to do, but you know you can't stop him. Madueke has an unpredictability that creates an insane amount of chaos in a back line, and he's fast, he's strong, he's really good 1v1. And I would say probably the one thing that he just needs to unlock is probably the final, like, getting the goals and assists. Hopefully that will come, but in terms of just his ability to stand in for Saka, and he had the Saka treatment. There were so many players on that side trying to stop the right-hand side from from building up and from getting into the box and from getting crosses and cutbacks off. He was getting the Saka treatment, and he did really, really well to, like, uphold that. I would say that moving forward with somebody like Eze on the left-hand side, we need to trust him a little bit more and even things out. We were at like 19% of our build up and our play and our attack had come up on the night on the left-hand side, which has been a problem. But just with Nani, he did a really good job doing the Saka role, but he had something different, which I think is important because we don't want carbon copies of players. We want players that create the same amount of threat or ask the same amount of questions, but in different ways, to make sure that if we need to use them both at the same time, we're doing different things. Or, if if we want to give different looks, that's basically what I'm trying to say. So I think Nani adds, again, like Mosquera, that layer of true depth that doesn't feel less than. If it feels like anything, it might feel different, but it definitely doesn't feel like less than, which is really good. Nani has been our best attacker in our last two games. And so hopefully that continues. And since Saka's just coming back, he'll probably still get to play against Bilbao, which would be cool. I don't know why it just feels like I have like hair like on me everywhere, and it makes me feel like something's crawling on me. Sorry. So, but yeah, let's keep going. Sina says, for us not to freak out with Saka out is the highest compliment to Madueke. I was livid about Ben White's fee. Egg on my face. Looks like it'll be the same serving for me from Nani. Bring it on. Ify says, yo, I can't believe it. No Saka, no Saliba in the team, and I wasn't worried one bit. Thank you, Berta. Healing says, I hate when we hype up one performance, do it consistently, and then I will praise. I seen us do it season after season, hyping up a player just after just one good performance. I mean, Healing Fountain, do what you want to do. I feel like where people are really desperate to criticize a player after one average performance or whatever, we have to have the same energy. So hopefully, if you don't feel like you want to praise somebody after one performance, you're also not writing people off after one performance. I often feel like it's never really equal. I can pretty much say that you're not going to give us anything after signing and never seeing them play for us before, or have a pre-season performance that wasn't amazing, and we can make very definitive and harsh conclusions about a player off of very limited information about how they look in an Arsenal shirt. But if they perform well, we withhold praise because we need them to perform consistently. So hopefully you're keeping that same energy when it comes to also being negative about a player. That's the only way that makes sense. But there's nothing wrong with praising somebody's individual performance in one game, because it doesn't need to be said that he needs to do it consistently. I don't think that it's bad to praise. We had the same conversation after Nketiah had his hat trick, where people were so hell-bent on being negative about Nketiah that they felt like they needed to withhold praise for a hat trick. There's not a single player in this squad right now that has a hat trick for Arsenal. Not a single one. It's not easy to get a hat trick in the Premier League. And there were people in the chat saying the exact same thing, that why would I praise Nketiah? It's just one game. We can give praise for a singular performance without having to go into, yeah, but he has to do it consistently and he has to do it against this team, he has to do it this, la 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 la. But if all I'm saying is, if you want to hold that same That's your standard, is that I'm gonna withhold all praise until he does it consistently. Then I also hope that with a bad performance, one bad performance, two bad performances, you will also withhold criticism, because it doesn't make sense to be overly critical and withhold praise when you're not holding the same consistency for that. So as long as that's what you're doing, I can accept that. Um, we played about 5-ish minutes with Kala on the right and Timber on the left, and didn't block. That was so strange, seeing Calafiori playing right center mid. It was just insane. Nani going to the outside has been a nice touch. We got to see the goal contributions, because that's what was the missing piece at Chelsea. He did well, but Arsenal fans are so hyperbolic. Let's see if he can continue to be consistent till Jan, at least, before making sweeping statements. I'm want to understand what the sweeping statements are, though. Like, the sweeping statement of he was good in that game. Like, I don't see any other sweeping statements except for maybe the oddball here and there saying, like, Saka has to worry about his position, but I don't think there's that many sweeping statements being made. Nobody's saying he's world class. Nobody's saying that he's the king of the earth. Nobody's saying that, he's Messi. I just think that it would be disingenuous to have been so negative about a player and to not at least admit that at this stage, even a couple of games in, that it's pretty clear that he's going to be more than good enough to contribute as a good depth piece. Because where we're okay with saying that with Mosquera, why is it that we have to hold off on sweeping statements with Nani? This is what I'm saying. I'm like, nobody's actually saying anything other than he's better than what we thought, and he's going to be good enough to be at least a good person to step in for Saka. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So I just feel like we just don't hold the same. We don't hold the same, because the I feel comfortable giving harsh criticism, because I'm also willing to give high praise if I feel like it's there. But I feel like some people want to have carte blanche on criticism and then withhold praise. You get what I'm saying? Like, at some stage, it's okay to just say that maybe you don't want to have to go as far to say you were wrong. But if you said that Nani was a shit player, at this point, that is incorrect. So at the very least, you could take that back. At the very least, right? Where we're probably not there yet is probably with Nani being like a true level raiser, right? A true level raiser, where that's where a lot of the criticism came in, is when it looked like it was going to be him and Gyökeres, there wasn't that feeling that he was going to be a level raiser. But what he ended up being once Eze came in was a depth piece, somebody that could come in for Saka and we wouldn't miss a beat. And so at that stage, that's been debunked, the negativity around that, I feel, and also the idea that he was shit, right? There's no reason to withhold praise when we were so like loose-lipped with the criticism. That's all I'm saying. The problem was he was positioned as the left wing starter until Eze was signed, but that was, as soon as Eze was signed, that was no longer the truth. And so we have to go about it from the reality that he's not the left wing starter. So what is he? He's a player that's going to step in for Saka. That's immediately what he became once Eze was signed. Eze's playing on the left, Nani's playing on the right. Right? And so I feel like we have to go with what the reality is, and not feel like not hold on so tight to the criticism because we were so staunch in it, right? Because he played so well for us. Like, you should be happy. There should be a big smile on your face right now. Regardless. Let's see. Ama says 100% right. People don't want to admit they were wrong. Simple. Like, apologize and Sack has to earn his starting place back. Like, come on. Exactly. But that's what I said. But that's not really what we're talking about, because nobody has really said that on this platform. I've looked at the comments. I don't think anybody has said that Saka, is like, needs to work for a spot back outside of like weirdos on Twitter. But in terms of the conversation that we're having right now, there's nothing wrong with saying, I said he was shit and he's not, because it's clear that he's not. Jess, you can praise him for his performance in isolation, but the Arsenal fans making sweeping statements like you should apologize because we haven't seen him perform consistently. I mean, again, I think there's a pretty small group of people that are saying that Saka or Saliba need to be worried about their position. I think what happens is those like very, what do you want to call them? Shocking, the shock value kind of people that are going out there for clicks and to get people to interact and engage. That's a very small percentage of Arsenal fans. The majority of Arsenal fans will tell you that as impressed as they've been with Madueke, Saka is still going to be the starter, right? And so I don't think that we need to focus on the opinions of the few when we probably know deep down that the majority of Arsenal fans don't feel that way. They just don't. And we know that. I would start Marino up front tomorrow and Yokers off the bench. We'll get to that. A little bit off topic. I think we are outgrowing Ben White slowly. We'll get to that as well. We'll get to that. Baguma, we'll get to that as well for sure. But yeah, with Madueke, I think we're in a position now where I feel like people are really wanting to hold on to the critical, and obviously there are people that want to do their victory lap and the I told you so and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like, what do you think about Madueke? Were you maybe too harsh on him? Because I do think that, where he's maybe not a level raiser, he's definitely not shit. And so we could at least be honest about that not being true. And that's pretty much all as far as that needs to go. The third person that's not necessarily a new signing, but definitely falls in this category is a 1 year older and a 1 year wiser Ethan Nwaneri. I don't know if it's the Max Dowman of it all. I don't know if it's because at the back end of last season, his performances had trailed off a little bit, but the amount of people that I feel like have forgotten what we have in Ethan Nwaneri need to rewatch the game against Nottingham Forest. That was his best performance in midfield to date. He does not need to be playing off of the right at right wing anymore. He needs to be playing in his natural position and getting up to speed there. And the improvement from the Leeds game to the Nottingham Forest game is insane. He was so much more economical with the ball. He was on the ball a lot more. It did not feel like we had two midfielders. It felt like we had three. He was moving the ball quickly, moving it forward. I would say the only thing that I wanted to see maybe was more shots, but he had one shot that was blocked off of like a second phase on a corner. He had the one where Marino did a cut back to him from the left half space and it went over. And then he had the shot where Madueke beat his man and passed it to Nwaneri. Nwaneri pivots around or, does like pivots around and hits it with his left and it goes wide. I don't know why people were sleeping on it. Felt like people were sleeping on Ethan. We need to play him out on the right. He's not ready. He's not this. Yes, he's ready. Maybe for some people, he's not ready to start at Anfield, but he's ready. He's ready. As long as Odegaard's out, I feel like he should play in his natural position. I don't feel like we need to go to the Marino fail safe. I don't feel like we need to do that. I feel like Ethan is growing in that position and we just need to let it cook. He was so good against Nottingham Forest. I mean, that was a great performance. And he was doing sometimes it's just about the simplicity. And I do feel like that's probably the word that I would use to describe her performance against Nottingham Forest in totality. Is it was simple, which we haven't been able to say in a long time. It feels like Arsenal's way of play, way of building up, way of breaking down teams feels a little bit convoluted at times. And everything about what Madueke and Eze, Gyökeres, Ethan were doing was very simple, but they did it at a high level, albeit there were some moments where, the passes went wayward, but that's fine. But it was just simple. And I felt like Ethan did the simple things right. He was available, he was dropping deeper to receive the ball, and his ability to step in and take over in a hard position to play. Right center mid for Arsenal is not an easy position to play by no means. He is becoming more than just a young player that's getting minutes in this team. He is a real person. Like, he is a real player in this depth. Like, he is another player. His growth, his ability to get better is why we can count him as, like, the depth is getting better, and it's not coming from a player that we bought. This is why I'm so like, I keep reiterating that he needs to be considered in every single decision, because this is not the type of player that you want to see going the Kobe Mano route. This is not the type of player that you want to hear is unhappy with the amounts of minutes that he's playing. Now, he would probably never do that. I don't think Ethan is that type of person, but you don't even want to risk it. You don't even want to risk it. He is more than good enough to take over that position in the next 1 to 2 seasons. More than good enough. More than good enough. Once he gets really used to being in that position, coming deeper, receiving the ball, taking lots more touches, not just being a 10 that exists between the lines and takes shots, but being somebody that you can trust in possession and to start our moves. And then he adds his goal scoring ability to that. We're talking about one of the best 10s in the league. We're talking about one of the best 10s in the league. Like, that's who we have. That's why when there was even an inkling that he may be available, they were chomping at the bit. That's why the first time that we renewed him, the Cities and the Chelseas were on our necks. Ethan is special. And I get that Dauman is special, but Ethan is special. And so, like, he's a part of it. And sometimes it's not about buying players, it's about players getting better, right? Ethan and Miles Lewis-Skelly have saved this club so much money. Like, like Saka has in the past. It's just insane. So I wanted to add him in there as well, because I don't think I saw enough praise. I don't. Lemon says Ethan is a true number 10. Reminds me of Ozil a bit. Let's see. Saka, Dauman, Noni, Ethan, very stacked right side, inside, and out. On Madueke, I was one of the I told you so guys. We keep him fit. He's gonna deliver. That being said, I know him from the Dutch league, which has produced insane talent over the past decades, like Ibra. Ethan dropping deep against Forest to build up play a la Odegaard, especially as Marino and Zubi were closely watched. His ball progression is also quality. I would have started him at Anfield. I would have started him at Anfield as well, but I'm also insane. So I don't know what that would have looked like. But I would say if there was somebody that believed wholeheartedly in Ethan, I definitely am one of those people. I think he's really, really good. But Arteta's taking his time. I think he's ready. 100%. Nico says Nwaneri has improved on when to slow it down and speed up play, which is great, which is so important. This is what we were talking about last season and why he was, I think, initially introduced at right wing. He's just getting used to the pace of playing first team football and getting confidence and not having his confidence ruined by throwing him into the deep end. But now it's time to learn the role that you're meant to be playing. And our midfield is not one that has a 10 that just sits in between the lines and takes shots. They're very much so involved in so many things. And he did so well with that against Nottingham Forest. And I just didn't see enough people talking about it. But if he's somebody with that level that he's bringing already against Nottingham Forest, he's like Nani and like Mosquera, making it so much less scary that we don't have some of the players that we've relied on so heavily over the last couple of seasons. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. A lot of the fan base are writing off Nwaneri because Dauman emerge is one of the strangest things I've seen. Well, we have shiny toy syndrome. Everybody, you know what I mean? We have shiny toy syndrome. Dauman came in and Ethan had that like, a normal thing that a young player has, which is a dip after they first come in. And now I think they're being reintroduced to a stronger, wiser, more developed Ethan, and it's exciting to see because I think Ethan is could become one of the best 10s in the league. I really do think he has all the qualities to do so. Let's see. Ethan has similar vibes to Saka in the sense he is so much stronger than he looks, hard to knock off the ball. That was something that impressed me against Nottingham Forest as well. The ability to knock players off of the ball and win it back. And then also when he's in possession, not to get knocked off the ball as well. He's really good. That's all I have to say. The next step for Nwaneri is to go up another level, will be to be a bit more aware of his surroundings because he sometimes be dispossessed easily, and we don't want another Gnabry situation. Exactly. So yeah, I think Ethan is so good, and so yeah, I wanted to add him in there as well because it's not just about the players we bought; it's about the players that we're developing. And seeing Ethan, I was like, yeah, no Odegaard, no Saliba, no Saka, no problem. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing. So another thing that I feel like we learned against Nottingham Forest is that we're going to have to suffer some defensive lapses because Calafiori is special. And we didn't get a good chance of like talking about him in the like instant match reaction because we had so many other things to talk about. But Calafiori, he is what he is. I think we've really prioritized defensive stability and solidity over the last 2 seasons, and it's reaped some rewards, I have to say. I think that feeling of safe for the last 2 seasons has felt great, but sometimes you have to give a little bit of that away to get something else, and I feel like Calafiori is the perfect example of that because there's just gonna be moments where he gets cooked. There's just gonna be moments where he gets cooked. I felt around the 50th minute, Calafiori was falling away a little bit in terms of, defensively, I felt like he was getting got at a little bit. But what he gives you going forward and the way that he has semi-healed the left-hand side, I think Eze also will add more to that, but where I almost don't wanna see the left-hand side without Calafiori because he adds so much, so much. He is a unicorn footballer. His injuries are one thing, but his talent cannot be denied. The 2 passes that he's put into the left half space have led to goals. One, Gyökeres's goal against Leeds and Gyökeres's goal against Nottingham Forest that ended up being the Eze assist. He just has that natural ability to know what is needed in the moment when he gets the ball. He's secure, he takes risks, he's a goal threat. He's so good in attack. He's good in so many different ways. And his his IQ is underrated as well, like Ash is saying. Okay, you guys are saying that my internet is down. Give me 1 second. Am I back a little bit? Hopefully I'm back. I'll just keep talking for now. But yeah, Calafiori is so good. Let's see. Big Gabby went wide a lot, which could be a way to get Cala in central zones defensively. I think we should start Hincapié MLS against Bilbao and rest Calafara, Calafora, that ball over the top twice now. He's had a hand in the Gyökeres goal. He has had a part to play in a lot of our goals so far this season. He just he's just a good player, and sometimes players are just not perfect, like, in terms of they just don't have both sides of the game, and it's always about, I feel like, if the pros outweigh the cons, right? At a certain point, the cons of Zinni were a lot less than the pros, so it made sense for Zinni to be there because he was giving so much to the attack in our buildup that it didn't really matter until it mattered, and he fell away and whatever. He just it was like then the cons really outweighed the pros. With Kala, we're in that nice sweet spot where we're so defensively sound that we can give a little bit of that. You know, Calafiori played probably at our toughest away fixture outside of maybe going to the Etihad and going to St. James and did really well. You know, Liverpool didn't score until they scored with the free kick. So I think we can trust him a little bit more, but also remember that some of the some of the Calafiori experience is understanding that because he's a like more of a center back or a natural center back and he's not particularly quick, he's going to get beat out wide. But that's why you have Gabriel, right? And so I just wanted to say that because I just feel like he's so good, you know? And so we have to be prepared because I'm not prepared to lose what we get going forward on that left-hand side to put somebody more defensively solid there if we don't have to. Um, Cala's bag is just so unorthodox. A center back at left back that underlaps, overlaps, score goals, and does the brave play offensively. Arteta must be telling him to attack because he used to be a really good center back before joining Arsenal, didn't have this kind of stuff in his locker. I think the club knew, you know, that he had this in his bag. And that's why they got him. That Arteta basically like said, no, we don't need a forward. Fuck it. Let's just go and get Calafiori. He'll be fine, you know? So yeah, I think that the club did know about what Calafiori potentially had in his bag. And we're just because he was injured, we didn't get to see it. And so now that we're seeing it, it's like very clear that he's a special player. I would go as far to say that he's one of our top 5 most talented players. I said what I said. Um, take from that what you will. The last thing that I feel like I learned from this game against Nottingham Forest is that Arsenal can play better football. We've been saying it for a while. And, you know, some people just, I don't know why some people defend nonsense all the time, but there's no way that we can't play better football under this manager. We've seen Arsenal play better football. Last season had to be an anomaly. It cannot be who we are. And just because we were scraping by with set pieces, that it just makes sense that we play this way. It just doesn't. Arsenal, not only is it in the fabric and the DNA and all that kind of stuff that we should not be synonymous with anti-football, but we can play faster, more direct, more vertical, simple football if we want to. And we showed that against Nottingham Forest. Again, Gabriel and Mosquera shooting the ball in between the lines to the feet of certain players, right? Taking less touches, quick 1-2 passing. You know, there was a little bit of flair in there as well, some flicks and tricks. And then the simplicity of your wingers taking on their man every single time. And oh, by the way, being successful. We can, if we want to, play better football. That was the most chances that we've created in a single game in a long time. That is the most GA that we've had in a single game in a long time. That is the most enjoyable. This is the most enjoyable game that we've had in a long, long time. I have not enjoyed watching Arsenal play for a long time. Yesterday was so or the day before was so enjoyable that I rewatched the game twice because I was like, I need to savor this. I need to savor this. So, of course, there are reasons why sometimes you don't play at your best. And I don't expect Arsenal to be in swashbuckling, beautiful football every single game. But the fact that people were actually trying to insinuate that this was fine, that what we were doing before was fine, and that's the best that we could do, and it's okay. Arteta is not like only pragmatic. He's not. He just has to, I feel like, take the handbrake off and go back to the simple way of playing football, which is 1-2 touch. We did it before with Party, Xhaka, Odegaard, White, Gabriel Jesus, and we can do it now with Zubamendi, Marino, Ethan, Mosquera, and Gyökeres. You know, the idea that we could not play a better brand of football, a more effective and fast and direct and dangerous style of football was just an excuse. And as Arsenal Football Club, we should not be synonymous with bad football. Our set piece prowess and our ability to make a corner into a penalty kick should be a cherry on the top of good attacking principles and good attacking football that already exists in the club. So there you go. Let's see. Muneen says, haha, you're so right. That's the only Arsenal game I've researched in 2 years. We actually had a winger that was relentlessly getting past people. And maybe it's the fact that like some of our players have played this way for so long that maybe they forgot that they can do better. Hopefully seeing Eze and Madueke and players like that playing this more free, attacking, fast, direct, that our players will come out of whatever trance that they've been in the last 2 seasons because they can also play better than what they've been playing like. Burmese says that Eze pass to Glock was class. Ball over the top, one-touch pass, and bang in the goal. Did you see Glock's reaction to Eze like, you're the guy? We need more goals like that. I feel like if we play the way we did against Nottingham Forest, we will demolish Athletic Bilbao. Eze was a breath of fresh air. Gyökeres dropped back a number of times with good flicks out wide. I honestly don't recognize my club. I can't imagine our front line without Martinelli and Saka. It's nice to see something different. I can't lie. I just want to see something different. That's why I was like, had a mini crash out during preseason because the Spurs game in preseason reminded me so much of who we've been. And I'm like, we have got to chuck that in the trash. We have got to get rid of whatever this is. This cannot be us sideways, backwards, too many touches, not taking shots, not taking on our man. We have to get rid of that. And I think the introduction of certain players and also Arteta told Nani Madueke and Eze to just create and just do what they want to do. They both they had their post-match interview and Nani said as much. And I'm like, that's what needs to be said. He probably didn't tell Martinelli that. I'll be honest. Like, why would you tell Martinelli that? Because he probably can't execute it at the level. But now that you have players that can execute that at the level, you have to give them the space and the autonomy to do what's natural to them. Eze's wing play is so good, and to think people thought he couldn't play on the left. That Gyökeres power shot that hit the bar would have silenced a lot of haters. I think Arteta needed a certain defensive setup before he would feel like he could remove the handbrake. I mean, we've been the best defensive side for 2 seasons now. I don't feel like it's about the right defensive setup. I think he needed better attackers. Genuinely, because I feel like when you don't have the type of attackers that you trust to get past their man consistently and create naturally, you start to choreograph what they do because you don't trust them. And maybe it's an element of telling Martinelli, knowing that Martinelli can't get past his man and trying to control what he does by saying, try to get corners or pass it back. But we've been the best defensive side for 2 seasons. How much more defensive setup do you need? I think he needed attackers that can get past their man and players that do have natural creativity to give them the license to do it because we've been defensively sound. Arteta can play good football when he wants to. Even last season when the football was dead, we still played good football against Forest at home when he had technicians, Georgie and Jesus on the pitch. Let's see, Nani secretly set up Nelly with that interview. Now there's defo no excuses for Martinelli. I don't even know if there's a reason to have conversations about Martinelli and can he get better or anything at this stage, if I'm honest. Let's see. I hope they don't play that Haram ball they played against Liverpool when played City. Forest last season was also one of our best attacking games. Gyökeres dropped back with the flicks. I read that one. So, yeah, those are the things that I feel like I learned with the game against Forest. One, we have the best depth in the league. Two, we're going to have to deal with some defensive lapses in order to reap the rewards of what Calafiori brings to this team. And three, if we want to play good football, we can. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If there's anything different that you feel like you learned against Nottingham Forest, I would love to see those in the chat. I'd love to go through a couple of those. Or if you just want to say, Jessica, you're so smart, I agree with you 110%. I'll take those in the chat as well before we get on to Bilbao. I do want to go through the potential lineup for tomorrow with more information about who's available and who's not. So make sure you guys are putting those into the chat. I have drank way too much water. So I'm going to step away for about a minute to sort myself out. Give me 2 seconds. I will be right back. Do not go anywhere. Get those what you actually learned in the game against Nottingham Forest. Get those in the chat. I'm back. Okay. Sorry. I drank way too much water. Let's see. If Madueke continues on this current form, would you drop him as soon as Saka is fit? It's kind of tough right now. I'm just going to choose to believe that the ins and out merry-go-round is going to continue, because if the first couple of weeks of the season has taught us anything, is that we're going to have injuries. And so I guess we'll figure it out when we get there. But I wouldn't want to be Mikel Arteta. I feel like that's where I'm kind of am right now. Am I muted, guys? Somebody is saying that I'm muted. I don't think I am, though. No, I'm not. That was just when I first came back. Is it just me, or I can see Hincapié starting tomorrow, just new things from Champions League? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see 100% what happens tomorrow, but we're going to get into it and build well, I'm going to tell you guys my lineup because I've already built it because I'm prepared. But yeah, let's see. I feel like Nani Madueke direct threatens and explosiveness dribble can be helpful against low block teams. Having the dribblers in our team makes a huge difference. As a Madueke, Ethan, and so we should always have at least one dribbler out there for sure. And for a minute, we didn't have any, so it makes a huge difference. As a rule, the touchline and pressed across the entire pitch in one sequence, leading to a turnover. I can't wait to see him in the UCL. Let's see. Somebody said I'm a top gooner. Of course I'm a top gooner. I love Arsenal down. Like, I'm actually like need to check myself into somewhere because all I care about is this freaking team. It's like sometimes you just deep it and you're like, why do I care about these people I've never met before so much? Like, why am I looking at my phone, just smiling, watching them in training? Like, it's actually sick. Of course, I'm a top gooner. To be honest, I feel like Saka goes right back into the squad. Madueke can be a sub, still can be an early sub for Saka. Saka, he is him. Do you think Odegaard will be fit for City, or does he start? I have no idea. I guess that kind of leads me into the conversation about what's going to happen against Bilbao and how do we set up Um, how do we set up for Bilbao to make sure that we have the best possible group for Man City? Because that's going to be important. And Nasir says, "Are we preparing for post Odegaard already?" But I feel like not even just post Odegaard. I feel like it's just natural for players to come in and things to change. And maybe it's because we've had the same group for so long, but Odegaard's like 26, Gabriel's 27. You know, Saka and Saliba are different, but I do feel like there needs to be somebody in the squad that we can maybe see post these players. We don't know what it's going to be like the next couple of seasons, summers, whatever. There's going to be a lot of football played. We have no idea what the future of this team looks like. So I actually don't think it's that big of a deal that we have a Haylander coming in and we actually have somebody that we can trust to step in for Odegaard. I feel like it's a little bit of like maybe it's thing with the fan base that I feel like it's, well, this person, I don't want them anymore, so they have to go, or they have no use to for me anymore, and making it like player FC constantly. It's like, well, now that so and so's here, this person's out. Like going back to what Nico is saying, maybe some people are feeling like now that Mosquera's here, we don't really need Saliba, but we're just now getting to a space where the squad is actually good enough to fight on all four fronts. And the first thing people are thinking about is getting rid of people or calling them useless or whatever. It is a long season. I just want to live in the moment where I feel confident when Saka and Saliba and Odegaard and Rice are not playing. I'm not in a space of post somebody. But if there was ever a scenario that would make me smile is if somebody that's been so key to the squad will eventually be replaced by a Haylander. Nothing would make my heart smile more than that. That's why I love Ethan down, because I feel like it's just the perfect scenario. If in a year or two, Ethan is in Odegaard's position and Odegaard's an old man and he's being phased out, that's football. And it is what it is. I would love for it to be Ethan, if that makes sense, but we're just getting to a point where this squad is like so good. And I feel like there's probably only one person that I think we can all agree that we fully moved past, but everybody else is so useful, so we just have to relax for a second, Um, but we'll see. We'll see where we are. But Odegaard, they said he didn't train. Odegaard didn't train. Saka did not train, and also Ben White. So I actually had to change my lineup from last night because I actually made it last night and I had to change it this morning because of the Ben White news. The one thing I will say about Ben White is that the more he's injured, the worse it is for Timber. Timber is somebody that I did not want to play tomorrow because we need to keep him fit. And this is an ongoing cycle that actually started with Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu being injury prone led to Ben White being ran into the ground. Then Timber came back and he was ran into the ground because Ben White was recovering from being ran into the ground because Tommy wasn't fit. And so this is why I'm so harsh on the injury prone players and why I feel like we have to get rid of them sooner rather than later. It's not because I don't love them. It's not because they're, I don't think that they're good players. It's because that they jeopardize other players, not purposefully, but because they can't maintain fitness. Right. And so Ben White has a little issue again. And in a game where Ben White probably should be playing, we'll probably have to play Timber because Saliba is just coming back as well. Because let's say Saliba was fit, I would just play Saliba and play Mosquera at right back. But Saliba's just coming back. Do you bring him back for Bilbao? Or what do you do? Who are you going to prioritize resting? Timber or Saliba? That's the question, right? Who are you going to prioritize? Because you're going to rest Kala. Kala is getting rested, period. So Kala gets rested. You probably have to keep at least one person in that back line that's like a normal center back. So you don't want a whole new center back pairing. This is the Champions League, and we anticipate beating Bilbao, but we need to be professional. This is not the Carabao Cup against Port Vale, so we're going to want to have one of our main guys in there. So do you keep resting Saliba and, risk Timber a little bit more, or do you risk Timber and keep Saliba safe? That's the situation that you end up being in because White is injured again. And it's a worry. It's a little bit of a worry. Now, once Saliba gets fully fit, then you have the option of using Mosquera at right back. And I feel like that's an option we're going to see a lot more than we probably thought. Because Ben White is not, he still has like these little things here and there. And I'm hoping that Ben White can contribute quite a bit to this season. But right now, he's in my category of we'll see. We'll see if he's fit. We have no idea what's going to happen with him, right? So that's pretty much the biggest thing that concerned me going into the game against Bilbao. Because at first, Mosquera, it was not Timber, it was White, but it's Timber. I would leave Saliba out for one more game, just so that he can come back fresh against City. He hasn't been out long enough where we have to worry about fitness or anything like that, but Saliba is somebody that kind of want to wrap in cotton wool and keep him out for one more game. But, this could easily be Mosquera at right back and Saliba at center back. Either one I could see, but this is just what I chose. Timber is just, he's just somebody that I worry about just a little bit because he's had like recurring like little things here and there. And so, yeah, choosing between him and Saliba was really difficult, but I think, Timber's probably fine. And then we'll see if we're winning, then you can take Mosquera and put him at right back and then bring Saliba and take Timber off. There's also subs, so this could change if, we're up a couple goals and, we feel confident, then we can switch this around. Just like, we could take Gabriel off and bring Hincapié in or, whatever. But it's Ben White's injury or, being unavailable creates a little bit of a ripple when you want to protect two of your most important players in Timber and Saliba. And Mosquera helps that. But yeah, that's pretty much where I was at with that. That defensive depth is probably the best in Europe. Saliba will get 30 minutes versus Bilbao because I have a feeling Holland will be out, out muscle Mosquera if he plays this weekend. Let's see. Hincapié playing. We need Timber for City, right back rather. Yeah, there's a couple of I could totally understand why some people would prefer to just put Mosquera on at right back and Saliba in. That's cool too, but ultimately I think what we have to try to look towards is first winning the game and then finding a way to limit Timber's minutes and also bring Saliba on, but a little bit later. And Mosquera will jump back and forth between those positions, hopefully, to help us do that. Mosquera will start World War III against Holland. If you had to rank these players if I had to rank the players who makes enjoy the skills between Gyökeres, Saka, Nani, Eze, Dalman, or Ethan, I can't really rank them right now because we're doing this, but I would say Eze is the most exciting player that we've signed in a long time. In a long, long time. He got me off my seat. He's a very exciting player. I love him down. I'm comfortable starting MLS, Hincapié, Gabby, Mosquera will rest both Timber and Saliba. Is it just me or Marino's more fitted to Champions League than Premier League? I have Marino in because I want Rice to be very fresh for the City game. With also the idea, once again, to be up and then be able to bring Rice on like we did against Nottingham Forest. I also just want to see this midfield again because it was a good time. I just yeah, it was kind of selfish, but also with the idea of Rice playing a lot of minutes for England, and maybe he just needs, it's hard because you don't really know if they need more minutes to get up to speed or if they need rest. So I guess we'll know with who Arteta picks, but I would actually just stick with the same midfield that we had against Nottingham Forest. Again, keep it professional. Just because it's Bilbao and we anticipate beating them, we still need to have a professional lineup out there. We can't rotate everybody, and you can also make sure that you limit people's minutes by just winning the game early and making it, a formality and then taking players off. But with Rice, I'm not quite sure what it is, if he needs to play more, if he needs to play less. I'm going to assume that he needs to play less. Want him fresh for Man City. That's the game that I want him to be ready for. So I'm going to give Marino more minutes in the position that he played. He played really well against Nottingham Forest. Him and Zubamendi are great together. They're suited to Europe because the game will be a little bit slower. They're used to playing against Spanish opposition. So why not? So that's what I would go with. Ethan keeps his spot. Odegaard didn't train. Don't know if he's going to be fit for any games. Nwaneri keeps the spot. As long as Odegaard's not there, it's Ethan. That's where I sit with that. I'm not going to change my opinion on it. David says, I think Marino comes in as a sub so Gyökeres can get the rest for City. But you can also just throw Marino up there and take Gyökeres off. I'm sorry, I need to see Gyökeres in the Champions League. I need him to stat pad. I'm going to be really real with you. So he was always going to start for me up front. Plus, he still needs more time to gel with his teammates. And, I don't think he's in a position where he necessarily needs rest yet. I think he needs actually more time to get used to and get his fitness up more. So there's also still the opportunity to, with probably thinking that Marino's not going to play against City unless he has to, that you can still throw Marino up front at the 60th minute or whatever, take Gyökeres off and throw Rice on, or, whatever. There's options there. I was surprised Tuchel, whatever you want to call him, played Rice so much. Are there not club country agreements? He doesn't give a fuck. Rice plays every single minute and he gets ran into the ground for sure. So I'm just trying to figure out with Rice, what do we need? What is a need? Maybe he needs to start against Bilbao. That's cool too. Marco says sitting 2 games for Rice is a long time. This is true. He could start. That would be cool. Rice could start and then Marino could come on after. That's cool with me as well. Is Norgard fit? He trained, but I don't know what his level of fitness is. He quite literally has not been involved since preseason. I would give Rice 60 minutes. We're probably a little bit lucky that Rodri is off at the minute. I would try Martinelli at center forward. Is there a world in which Norgard starts? I don't want Norgard to start, but maybe there's a world where he does. I just the idea Norgard plus who? Because I'll tell you what, in preseason, I did not like Rice plus Norgard. I think it's too much of similar traits, ball winning, physicality, things like that. So where is the finesse going to come from? Norgard plus Marino, not my favorite look either. So for me, Norgard comes in against like Port Vale or like one of those teams. I just don't see a reason why. Again, it's Champions League, and I still feel like we need to be kind of professional. Let me look up our thing. Like, if you wanted to start Norgard at some stage, why not let it be against Port Vale in the Carabao Cup? I just feel we need to keep it cute and not get like, oh, well, it's Athletic Bilbao. We're still going away from home. Of course we beat them in preseason, but it's preseason, so I think we keep Zubi going, keep getting him used to playing with us, and he can rest against for the Port Vale game. He can play 2 more games and then get the next rest, but most of the time your 6 plays almost every single game. So I would expect no less, but some people feel like he should be rested. I don't think so. I think he should play still. Zuby should be rested as well. No, not to me. Like, I don't think players I don't think I don't I don't see why he would need to be rested. But I kind of understand what you guys are saying. I just think that this is an important game. Like, obviously, we're looking past Bilbao, I think, a little bit too quickly, and it's like, well, we're gonna beat them, and they're gonna be easy to beat, so let's just play, like, rotated. Norgard hasn't played in a long time. Dropping him into a Champions League, our first game in Champions League, doesn't feel good to me. I'd rather him be dropped into the Port Vale game. Also because his dynamics are incredibly different than Zubimendi and Norgard could be no more different. And so I'd rather keep the synergy going within the team with the 6 that's gonna be playing most of the time than, you know, throwing Norgard in there. He hasn't played since preseason. He quite literally has been injured since the very first game against Man United. Um, I get it, it's athletic I get it's athletic club, but it's still, I'm gonna stick with this midfield. The only change maybe would be Rice, but, you know, I'm leaving Zuby in. Um, we need to get at least 10, 12 points in UEFA first before we start resting people. Bilbao have held clean sheets in their last 3 games. They may try and slow it down. If Saliba can play, I'd start him over Timber. I saw someone say that Norgard was never injured, just saved face because there was no space on the bench, okay? And if we need to get off to a good start in the Champions League leading into Man City, I think Nelly will start, to be honest. There's no reason to start him. Four players new for us in the Champions League. Eze hasn't played Champions League. Uh, Neither has Madueke. I think it's best to go strong, bring Norgard in the second half to see the game out. Yeah, I just feel like I get it. I totally understand that, Zubimendi is so important and we want to protect him, but Norgard just hasn't played. His style is so much different than Zuby's, and if there's probably one player that's usually a constant in most teams, it's the 6, and so it's just the curse of the 6. If you're the 6, you're probably going to play rain or shine, and or rain or rain or shine. And there's Port Vale is coming up. We just have to make it through these next 2 games, and then Port Vale is there for us to do the Norgard, Marino, Ethan Dowman group. We have that coming up. But and like Goyan is saying, I dream one day of Norgard, MLS, and Ethan. Do that against Port Vale, but it's the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm gonna stick with this midfield, but I also accept your guys's like Rice maybe starting, and maybe instead of Timber, start Mosquera at right back and Saliba. Those things are fine as well, and if we did those things, then I would be happy with the lineup as well still. Now, the front 3 should be the front 3 that's probably gonna start against Man City. I think the most important thing for those 3 is, 1, to get used to playing for Arsenal and keep playing together to maintain their chemistry. Saka has not really trained. There's no Kai, and there's no reason not to play your best left wing in your first game in Champions League and the game against City. So I would maintain the same front 3. This is also my front 3 for Man City. Let them get some chemistry going. Let them get used to playing with each other. We saw that in the second half against Nottingham Forest that they started to understand each other. We're going to need that against City. We're going to need them to understand each other. Disrupting this now feels like an unnecessary disruption to get players in there that don't need to be playing in our first game in the Champions League or against City. So this is what I'm going with. This is it, but like, what would be the reason for Martinelli coming in? genuinely. Like, I don't really see a reason why. It doesn't make us better. It doesn't, it's I don't get it, so keep the vibes going because more than anything, a brand new front three that are also brand new to Arsenal, more than anything, they need to play together and more often, so especially if you sense that attackers are getting into a vibe, why would you break that? Both all of them, well, Madueke didn't contribute GA, but they contributed so much to our game against Nottingham Forest. Let's not disrupt it, so yeah, you don't want Martinelli at center forward. It's just not something that it's not my hill to die on. I know a lot of people feel like the only way to save him at this club is to put him at center forward. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. Like it's not. It's not my hill to die on. And if he plays up there, cool. If he doesn't, then doesn't. Like it's just not something that I'm like worried about, to be honest. I agree with the front three starting, but time management needs to be considered. Well, of course, and that's why in this Champions League game, it's just not the type of game where I feel like we can go out there with super mismatched group and all these super big changes and expect to do our best away from home. I feel we need to put our best foot forward, try to get a couple goals in, and then start to rotate. So I'm not saying that they have to play all 90 minutes together, but I'm saying from the very beginning, 60 minutes, 70 minutes with this group would be great, and then start to rotate. That's what I would go with. Martinelli will come in left wing if Martin is still injured and Eze at the 10. Ethan won't start against City. If anything, Eze is not going to start in the 10. It's going to be Merino. Arteta, one thing that he's maintained is a left footer on the right-hand side. And Merino was trusted again in Anfield. Why wouldn't he be trusted against City if he's not going to play Ethan? I do not anticipate a U-turn from that, especially when Arteta sat up in a press conference and defended that stance, before the Nottingham Forest game. So if, there's, again, it would weaken us anyway. This whole idea that there's no scenario, we're not in a scenario where Martinelli needs to be starting games right now. You could start Ethan at the 10. I would even prefer you start Merino if that keeps Eze at left wing, because otherwise your left-hand side is just not even a factor. So ultimately, there's no reason to start Martinelli in the game against Bilbao or the game against City, unless something catastrophic happens. Madueke versus Nico Riley would bring me joy. Merino in midfield, as long as Eze is on the left. This is what I'm saying, like, because I just don't think I get that people really want to see Eze in the 10, but the repercussion of that is that Martinelli will be playing left wing. So I'd rather keep my wings open, flying, beating their men, because Eze can still contribute creatively from the left. We've already seen it in his first start and even the first 20 minutes that he played against Liverpool, and then choose one of Ethan or Merino to play in the 10. Merino looked a lot better in midfield with Zubimendi, by the way. I think it could just be the case that maybe Rice and Merino don't work well together, which some things just don't work. Maybe it's just like Merino and Zubi just have that natural relationship, because that looked good. And most of the time, well, actually, every single time that Merino has played in midfield prior to the Nottingham Forest game, I want to say he played with Rice. Now, he played with Zubi in the 6 and Rice in the left center mid, but I still think that there's an element of maybe Merino just needs to be closer to Zubi or something, but it could just be that. But I would love to see Merino and Zubi again in a game against a Spanish team and see how that goes again. And with always understanding that Rice can come in and do his thing. But relationships matter, and having more of your good players out there at once matters. And once you move Eze to the 10, you've opened yourself up for your left wing to be Martinelli. And I just don't feel like that's ever a best 11. Our best option is never with him on the left anymore. Bear in mind, Zubamendi and Marino are former Sociedad players, so they know how to beat Bilbao. Calafiori is the wild card. Opponents can't figure out where he'll pop up. Next, he's crazy. Then why not Eze in the 10 and Trossard on the left? Because again, that does not give us our best front three or our best option. Like, I love Trossard, but it still just feels like we're trying to force something that doesn't need to be forced. Madueke plus Eze plus one of those people in the 10 to me is still a better option than Eze in the 10 and Trossard. Because as much as I love Trossard, how can you watch what we saw against Nottingham Forest and want to break that apart? Why would you want to do that? I just don't understand it. But why would you want the left-hand side not to function anymore? Like, I don't get it. But maybe there's a time where we'll see Eze in the 10. I just don't feel like we need to do that and disrupt the left-hand side. And we're just getting to a point where it looks good. Like, I just don't get it. Who would have thought our left winger doesn't need an 8 and an overlapping left back to perform? I think Arteta will give the front three 65 minutes to get the win. For sure. So this is what I'm going with. We shall see. It's, we just played 5 minutes ago, so it's insane to feel like, know that we're going to play again in like 2 seconds. Like, oh my goodness, but I'm still like getting the Forest content and basking in that. And we're going into Champions League, but Champions League Arsenal has been good. Champions League Arsenal feels like a different Arsenal. I guess it's because we don't have to come up against the deep blocks and it's just a different vibe altogether. But I like this 11. I like Skelly coming in for Calafiori to rest him. Get him some minutes as well. He looked good when he came on as well against Nottingham Forest. Keep the front three the same. Once they score their goals, take them off after that. It could be Rice at left center mid. I'm okay with that as well. I just have Marino in there just maybe because Rice needs more rest. I don't know. And selfishly, I want to see Marino and Zubamendi and Ethan again. And then it could be Saliba in Mosquera at right back, or what I have here. Either way, we need to find a way to limit the minutes for both Timber and Saliba, I feel. And Mosquera will give us an opportunity to do that. So, yeah, my score is a very professional 2-0. That's what I'm going to go with. Also, I look forward to seeing Nico Williams getting clamped by either one of Timber or Mosquera, because fuck them. But my score prediction is 2-0. I would love to know your guys' in the comment section. I'll give you guys a second to do that. Has to be a Hincapié, Saliba backline, Jesse. And always injured. He ducked it. Damn. Hincapié also wanting to maybe see him come in later. I didn't mention that, but in my notes I put that, even though Skelly, I would start him because I feel like he has seniority over, or like not seniority, but like he's been here longer, so he deserves to start the games. He was one of our stars in the Champions League. If we're not going to play Cala, I mean, Hincapié can come in, give him 30 minutes or something like that. I'm okay with that. He can start as well. Like, I just, don't want to disrespect MLS. He was one of our superstars last season. So, yeah. Hincapié for Skelly, 70 minutes, 4-1, 3-0, 3-0. Skelly needs to start playing as an 8. Nico isn't available, Jess. Well, he ducked it. That's crazy. Oh, well. Clifford, 4-0. Addicted says 2-0, 3-1. I need that clean sheet. I'm addicted. I need that clean sheet. Mosquera coming from Valencia. He should be used to playing Bilbao. I would love another 5-1, 3-1. Victor Brace as a with 1. Hincapié will be starting left back by January. So, yeah, I think all of us are pretty confident in, the game and, winning, and whether we have the same 11 or not. The reality is we have so many options, even if with players injured, that we'll be able to field a really strong team. So, yeah, like I said, I'm going with a professional 2-0, Gyökeres with a goal, hopefully Eze with a goal. But yeah, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on the way out. It helps the channel grow and to get more eyes on the channel and more Arsenal fans and to grow the community. Tomorrow, match reaction immediately following the Bilbao game. And yeah, hopefully we're talking about a win. Love you guys to death, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.